Now to the roundup, and the debate surrounding school vouchers is expected to intensify this year. On Friday, a rally will be held in Austin to cap off National School Choice Week. Last week, a state senator out of New Braunfels introduced a private school voucher bill. State Senator Donna Campbell says her bill will help save Texans more than $1 billion over 5 years. And while supporters say the vouchers expand educational opportunity, others say any money taken away from public schools weakens them. The vouchers are our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can also send a tweet. Be sure to use the hashtag Fox26for Life. Joining us live in the newsroom is our Roundup panel, and it's led by our Fox 26 senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico. Chris, good morning.
Good morning.
So I see both sides of this. I mean, parents certainly don't want to be forced to send their kids to failing schools, but at the same time, you don't want to have to take money away from those neighborhood schools.
Well, absolutely. And the real problem that they're going to encounter with this is the Texas Supreme Court has just taken up the latest appeal on the school funding, the school finance lawsuit. For the second time, a judge in Travis County, Judge Dietz, I believe is his name, in Travis County, has declared unconstitutional the Texas scheme for financing public schools. And so what he's saying is you don't have enough money to properly fund these schools. Now, if you pass this bill, you're going to take more money out of the school system. I don't know how this is ever going to pass constitutional muster when Judge Dietz won't approve the plan we have in place now, and then they're going to pull more money out of the program. Let me introduce our panel. Mustafa Tamiz, our public policy analyst, Jackie Bally, political analyst. The other way around. The other way around. But y'all know who you are. Let me start with you, Jackie. The opponents of this say all this is going to do is help people who can already afford private school. Because if you get, we were talking off air, $5,000 or $7,000, we're not sure how much the voucher will be. But if you give $5,000 or we'll go with $7,000 to somebody in the 5th Ward that's working a minimum wage job, they can never get their kid into a private school.
And you know, those are the ones who are supportive of it. Whenever polling shows, you're seeing Hispanics and Black people, or people of color. They're the ones who are most supportive of this.
Is it a lack of understanding?
Voucher system. Well, it's not a lack of understanding, more of an opportunity to choose something else. So they see this as an opportunity to go to a better school or to have another choice and to be able to make that choice for their child. And proponents of the bill are saying, of course, the opposite, that this would actually save taxpayer dollars. And they're using things like whenever from 1994 to 2012 or something like that, we've seen a 37% increase in students, but we've seen a 173% increase in administration. And if the percentage would have been, administration would have been the same as the students, we would have saved $6 million minimum. So proponents are saying these are dollars that can be transferred with your student, with your child, to the school of your choice.
What about that? I mean, taking the money out, I don't know the study that Jackie's talking about, but let's assume that the study says what Jackie says it says.
It's TPPF.
Okay, I just haven't seen it. I'm not saying you're not telling us the truth, but is this a lack of understanding for people who will never be able to afford? You take this voucher, you still can't pay $20,000 a year to put your child in a private school.
Yeah, most of the private schools range between $15,000 and $25,000 a year. So if you have a voucher of $5,000 or $7,000, you're not going to get your kid in a private school anyway.
Without coming out of pocket.
Without coming out of pocket. And most of in other places where this has happened, 95% of religious schools are the ones that are beneficiary of moving the public sector money into religious schools. And so that's what's going to happen if this thing passes. The bigger issue with this, for people to think about, it's almost like saying, I don't like the Houston Police Department, so therefore I'm going to take my contribution for my tax contribution that would go to the police department. Instead, I will hire my own private security in front of my house, in front of my business. Well, that might work for affluent people that can afford a gated house and a business in a nice downtown area. But then what about the rest of us? It makes the system weaker for the rest of us. Public education is a ladder out of poverty, and if we take that away, the divide between the rich and poor will only grow. It won't get less.
But there are a lot of failing schools right here in our community.
Right.
And Dan Patrick is saying, let's let these people take their child out of this failing school and put them somewhere where they can get a good education.
And it's not all private schools either. I mean, they're also saying, let's put them in better public schools. just the failing.
Well, you wouldn't need a voucher.
You wouldn't need a voucher for that. Like, for example, in Houston, if you're an HISD, you can take your kid to any HISD school. So the voucher wouldn't change that.
That's state law.
Yeah, the voucher wouldn't change that. But look, the hard part about this is that we underfund our schools more than any other state. We're at the bottom of in terms of what we put in school systems already. If you do this, you will make our economy suffer because we're already having a hard time graduating kids out of high school.
All right, let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, we have one of our viewers up early with us, Matt, whose Twitter picture is actually "I'm a school choice voter," and he says that it's important to note that the largest voucher program in the U.S. provides for approximately 100,000 kids. Texas grows by 100,000 kids each year, he says. And then Raise Your Hand Texas, this group says vouchers don't change the dynamics of student prep, family transportation, which you hit on, Chris, or the lack of alternative choices in rural Texas.
Well, that's interesting about rural Texas because nobody's really thinking about that as they're talking about this voucher plan because it really we focus on the metropolitan areas where you have more schools.
Sure. Another thing is that we need to look at is Senator Taylor is the one who's heading up the Education Committee. And one of the things he did last year was propose a bill that said for all of these failing schools, he proposed a bill to make it easier for those schools to become charter schools. Because we do have a successful charter program in the state so far.
So there's
for the
good
majority,
charter schools.
for the majority of them, they are successful. And so that's something that you're seeing as a trend. So they're using that as a model to say, look, this has been helpful with charter schools, and that's why the voucher system will be used for the public schools.
Final thought, how do you fund this when the Texas courts have continually said our system is unconstitutional?
Well, it'll just be perpetual litigation, and that's kind of what we do in Texas. When we don't agree with something, we just tie something about the court system forever, and that's what's going to happen because it's going to change the nature of that litigation because now you've got vouchers on top of it, so it creates a separate lawsuit. In the end, the people that lose are our kids.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. We'll be back in a little bit with another really good topic.